Hey everyone, it's Sally Estlin on Magic Mike Moments, and today I'm extremely excited to sit down with our special guest today, Alan Stevens. Alan is an international profiling and communication specialist. So welcome, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on our show today. And I do want to just spend a little bit of a moment just to read a short bio about yourself, because you have got so much in your toolbox. You've lived a life so far, and I can't wait to sit down and have a chat with you.
Yeah,
So
well,
just
I have been on the planet for a long time.
well, hopefully it's been a good time too. So yes, so you're an international profiling and communication specialist and also creator of the human pattern recognition profiling system. So with 5 decades dedicated to the mastery of human behavior, nonverbal communication, and interpersonal skills, you're a global authority and pioneering innovator in the science and art of reading people. Oh, so fascinating. People, as soon as you say that, must spark their interest, right?
It
So you're
certainly does.
you're recognized globally as the leading authority in this field, and in recent years, you've been awarded or honored with over 17 national and international awards, including Businessperson of the Year, Social Changemaker, and Man of Influence for Australia. Oh, Man of Influence, that's a good title. I love that. That's awesome. So you're an Amazon #1 best-selling author, and you hold several certifications, including master levels in NLP, results coaching, Ericksonian hypnosis, and neurological repatterning. Oh, that's a mouthful. And your expertise is further enhanced by your skills in elite and professional micro-expression detection, as well as other forms of non-verbal behavioral detection. So you've worked with high-profile organisations like the likes of Disney Films, Gillette, and the Australian Federal Police, helping them to enhance their communication and profiling strategies. Your work includes significant contributions to the education and social sectors, particularly through your roles as Director of the Business of Smiles, I love that, and the Central Coast Montessori Primary School. So, wow, what an introduction, Alan. I am so grateful for your time to sit down and have a chat with us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. We've had a couple of chats, and I've been looking forward to sitting down with you again.
I know, I really am in awe of what you've done, and I just wanted to share with everyone a little bit about your journey, your experiences, and what's brought you to where you are today. So, wow, where do we start? Where did it all begin?
Well, let's first of all have a look at what you just said a moment ago about all the awards and everything else.
Mm,
The work outside of my business, I created the Campfire Project, which is a safe place for men and women to come together. And I created it with the hashtag We Together.
mm,
And the only reason I've got those awards and everything else, I've been nominated for so many, was the fact that the people around me, the
yeah.
work we've done together, we're only as good as the people that we work with. You know, I can have all these skills, but unless I can work with people and they
Mm,
get results from them, the
yeah.
skills mean nothing.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's the main thing that I look at first of all is, you know, everybody with profiling, when I read somebody, it's about understanding their personality so I can have a better relationship with them.
yeah.
It's not about manipulating or anything else. People go, well, what's he doing? Is he reading my face? What's he seeing?
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm usually seeing is the strengths that they have that they can't see in themselves.
It's so true. That's so true. And you just take it that whole other level, because I know working with people, and you can see when they're just not stepping up to their full potential,
Mm.
and it's the fear or whatever it is, but you can even read it on a deeper level. So you're all about building relationships.
That's it. So there's an example of that is a young boy that I profiled a number of years ago. He was 6 years old at the time with Asperger. His mother, who was a single mum, got me to profile him. I gave her a written report that she gave to the school and the after schools care because neither of them wanted him, or if you stayed at the school, they wanted him heavily medicated. And so I gave her a report. She was able to get the school teachers to put in place what I'd suggested. A year later, when they said he'd never do presentations, he was doing presentations in front of the class. Just over a year later, they let the psychologist go because they didn't need him. And with the doctor's approval, medication was off the table. So everybody said, well, you know, you're looking at his issues, his problems. I'm going, no, I'm looking at everybody else's problems.
Yeah.
His personality is such, but if everyone else can talk to him in the way that he needs to be spoken to, he's not going to be as pressured. He's not going to get triggered as often, and therefore he won't need medication. The
Yeah.
conversations they have will be even better again. And the beautiful part of it is his mother did a testimonial for me a couple of weeks ago to remind me now that he's about to turn 20, where they
Whoa.
said he would always need a carer. He is now out there on his own with a girlfriend. He's got his own place. and he's now an assistant manager in a nightclub. So a lot different to what everybody else said, because they had judged him on their situation and everything else. They didn't read him on his, and they didn't communicate with him. Once that was done, the things changed. And that's why I love doing what I do, because I can connect with people at those levels. And I feel honored and very grateful that I'm able to be part of all of those things.
Oh, look, it's just so powerful. And what are your thoughts on kids, particularly this side of the century, being a lot more sensitive, a lot more in tune? And I know myself, just with personal experiences, there's a lot more sort of feeling that they're a square peg in a round hole, particularly with the school system. It's not, I don't feel that it's accommodating or growing at the extent that our kids are growing in evolving more intuitively, more sensitively. There's an increase, or is it an increase in a spectrum or autism or whatever because we're more onto it, or is it just generally more a growth in sensitive kids?
No, what we're actually doing is because they're different, each generation's getting more sensitive, etc.
Yeah.
We then put them into a box and label them because that fits our system.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was a young fella, if the Ritalin had been around at the time and there'd been more diagnosis, I would have been seen to be ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was told at school I'd never achieve anything.
Yeah.
Now I'm one of the leading authorities globally on reading people.
Yeah.
Everything that I've gone into, I've risen to the top. And by the way, I do thank the original comments they made about me, because that made me do the things that I'm doing today.
Yeah.
One thing anybody who's listening to this and they're going, oh yeah, younger generation, they're sensitive, they're cream puffs and all that sort of thing. Well, just remember that each generation creates the next generation. So if you don't like what's going on with the generation before, then you've got to ask yourself, what did we get wrong?
Yeah.
Our generation.
Yeah.
And so, but I grew up where you had to be tough, stiff up a lip and all the rest of it, suck it up, don't be a little girl. That's what the boys were being told at the time. And this is where a lot of the sayings that we've got problems with today have come from. But we were good students. We learned all of that and we lived that. So then we turn around, no lessons on how to raise children, but now, or to have a partner. Now we've got a husband or a wife, a partner, and we've got our children, no guide on how to raise them. And we teach them with what we've learnt. Now, if you look at the generation before me, they were the builders.
Yeah.
They went through 2 wars, through 2 depressions. It was always struggling for survival. So theirs was, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, bottom level, survival. Then we came along and baby boomers, it was all about then having security.
Yeah.
We had our food for today, but now we're going to make sure we've got our food for tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were taught that from our parents, and I became very focused on bringing the resources in and everything else, to the point that I was very much emotionally disconnected, because I'm out there showing my love to the family by being absent, and they're feeling that they're being rejected because I'm not around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the next generation, then the Gen X turned around and went, we want to be recognized. We want, what about the family? We had our food for the day, we had our security, then they wanted to be recognized. So Gen X were the ones who wanted their titles on their business cards, and they were the ones who wanted business cards. I never had business cards until I had Gen X in my workforce. And so, like what was it now? The director of first impressions, the receptionist. All these titles that came up, like the sanitary engineer was the person who used to come and collect our garbage. All these titles that were necessary because people needed to be recognized.
Yes.
And then, the Gen Y comes along, and in England, they called them latch kids, because a lot of the doors, they just had a little latch you would open up. They'd come home from school, they'd let themselves in, wait for the parents to come home. It was the same thing here in Australia.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
And so those kids then are going, you got your food for today, you got your food for tomorrow, you've now been recognised. What about us? What about the family? So they are starting to, we've taught each generation to become more sensitive.
Yes.
They haven't it's not a hereditary problem that's coming in, or a genetic problem that's coming through. I know we blame foods, we blame lots of things out there for it. But the education we give each generation down the line is where it starts. And that then gets the thinking going. Because when you're thinking, you've got chemicals that you raise every time you have a thought. Good chemicals, good thoughts, good chemicals,
Yep.
feed your body. Bad thoughts, bad chemicals, eat your body. This is why we've got so many links to emotional issues and physical health, because the neurology and physiology are linked.
Yeah.
And once we understand that, those chemicals are going on in our heads all the time. So if a child is thinking in one way as they're growing up, they're going to be like that way as they get older. And so now they're going to get more and more sensitive. So we have created more and more sensitive. They haven't got a problem, and to medicate them, I think, is criminal, because we're blaming them for what we taught them to become.
Oh, this is giving me goosebumps. This is what we need to talk about. This is what needs to be out in the open, and people to start thinking this way, outside of the box, outside of the traditional way. So what I mean, it was Gen Y. What are we up to now? I've lost track of what we're calling each of the generations, but what's the vibe now that's going around?
They've gone through a whole bunch of different titles and everything else, but at the end of the day, I look at the behaviors and understand the people.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems for the younger ones right now is broken families, father's not present, and no rite of passage for boys. And so if you have boys growing up without a father, without a male role model, a good male role model, that guides them to teach them how to be respectful. That's one of the things when my first wife left, I had 3 boys to raise on my own. They were 4, 11 and 12. One of the things that I made sure of, because I realized that if they didn't respect her, they wouldn't respect women in their life. And they'd be like me, had a lot of broken relationships by the time after I separated from her. So for the next 10 years, a lot of relationships. And I thought, hang on, I don't want my boys like me.
Yeah.
So I then built a relationship with her so that they would respect her. As I said to her, I will make sure that they respect you. They love you. We've got to get them to respect you. But once they respect you, it's your job to hold on to that. I'm not coming back and fixing it if you lose it again. So I made her take responsibility for what she needed to do, but I took the responsibility of being their father. Because when I looked at it, what did she bring into the marriage? The two of us, between us, 3 sons that I love and respect. I had to honor her for that, even though she told me I wasn't good enough to be a husband. So I could choose to be angry about one side or look at the positive side. And I looked at what was more important, the growth and welfare of my sons. That was far more important to me than anything else. So I took on one of those old comments that were given to us when we were younger, suck it up, buttercup. And that's exactly what I did. We built a great relationship. And it was quite funny because when my oldest one, he's now in his mid-40s, when he was in his early 30s, she came to me and said she needed somewhere to stay for 3 months. And I had a spare room. Could she be a lodger?
Yeah.
I said, as long as it's separate lives, you do your own thing. You can cook your own meals and all the rest. We might have an occasion if I cook a baked dinner. It's a bit of a waste to cook a big baked dinner and then on your own. I said, but outside of that, separate lives, and you just pay your way. She said, yes. Well, she moved out 3.5 years later.
Oh, you're kidding me.
How that happened is simply because I just went straight back to that original thought. What did she bring into the marriage?
Yeah.
And I keep looking at my sons now, who are all fathers themselves, and I've got 6 grandkids, 2 with each of them.
Wow.
And so that I can look back at and go, well, that never would have happened unless we'd had that arrangement. But in that, I realized that they needed their mother around them, so they grew up and understood that side, because if they didn't have that bond with their mother, they wouldn't respect women and therefore wouldn't have great relationships. At the same time, if it was the other way around, I would have needed to be there to make sure that they grew up knowing that they, to be a man takes more than just being tough.
Yeah.
It's about being vulnerable. It's about if I did something wrong, own up to it and say to the boys, hey, this is what I did wrong. Don't do the same thing as me. Use everything positive and negative in my life as an education for them.
Yeah.
So they learned from all of that. And that was important. But so many boys today are growing up without their fathers. And if the partners have separated and they're bagging each other, the end result is the one who's doing all the complaining about the other partner, yes, they will, put the other partner down so that the kids won't really connect with them, but they will lose respect because they're telling their children that half of them is no good. And it doesn't matter if it's the male or the female who's doing this. And so both parties miss out in that whole thing because of the anger they got towards each other. by refocusing and going, okay, we're now separated. It's just the way it's gone. But how can we get the best out of this? If you love your kids, you need to have a look at that.
It's
So
so
therefore,
true.
the
Yeah.
boys need a man around to be able to learn those, take them through their rites of passage.
Yep.
I do a lot with the Aboriginal groups, and we take kids out through their rites of passage. And that's about helping boys to become men. And then when they become men, this is why you have different levels of elders, and that the older elders, the more wiser ones, they then help those young men to become better men. And so we've got that process because all the generations then work together. Instead of wiping out off our grandparents and putting them in a home and forgetting about them, the wisdom and knowledge they've got is so important. It used to be the grandparents in tribal times that would look after the boys when they would
Yep.
gone past that nurture with their mum, getting ready for their rites of passage to go out with the other men, because they couldn't go out hunting with the men, but they would get the wisdom from the grandparent. And the grandparent had felt value because they had their sons there and the other the girls and everything else, all the grandchildren, that gave them purpose. But we've lost all of that. So bringing that back is important. But the girl also needs their father as well, because if the father's got the right role model, the girl then goes, this is the standard I'm looking for. I won't accept anything less than that. So if we want to get rid of a lot of the issues we've got with the genders and everything else, it's by coming together, not pointing fingers. Because as I say, when you point one finger,
You got three coming back.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I did have a mate of mine, he lost that finger in an accident. So when I did that one day, he went like that, and I said, yes, but I can read between the lines.
I love it. Oh my gosh. All of what you're saying, I completely relate to. And, you know, I've got 4 kids and the same sort of thing. And rekindling with my ex-husband for the sake of the kids, it's just the change in the energy. And I just think, oh my gosh, I know it's, you know, it's 1 in 2, isn't it? Or something like that. It's pretty high, the divorce rate, right? So it's so
pretty
many
close to
kids are
it.
being impacted. And it's like, you know, I get that relationships fall apart. I get it. But, you know, let's think of the impact of the kids, because exactly what you were saying, that respect, you know, respecting women because I've got 3 boys and 1 girl, but that's been my major concern, is that, you know, how you're treating me is how you're going to treat other women. And that really has concerns. And I speak to the girlfriends and I say, never allow the boys to, like, you know, come to me and chat about it. But, you know, you've had such an amazing journey up until now. And do you mind sharing a little bit about how you've actually formed the Campfire Project and your experience with the Aboriginals? Because I'm going off to Darwin. I'm taking 2 of my kids out to Kakadu, trying to get them just to experience some of, like, take it back to basics. And of course, it wouldn't be as deep as your experience, but it's a start, you know, just starting to respect nature, respect cultures, respect their roots, you know, the history of the country. So, I mean,
So my understanding of spirituality and everything else started with that. And it started after my second divorce. My second wife had taught me into becoming a massage therapist when we were married. And I put that on hold when she left. And a couple of friends taught me into giving them a massage. And they're all engineering types. And they were away at a retreat. And I gave one a massage on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. And then the person who organised it all, a massage after that. Each one of them, and these are engineering types, coming and asking me, how did the table move? Where'd the extra hands come from? And that was serious.
whoa.
And the one who was running it, he had an out-of-body experience. Oh, look, this is bizarre. And they said, well, they kept on nagging me, was the only way, putting it. When was I going to start massaging again? So I ended up opening my rooms up, and all of a sudden I started getting terminally ill patients coming in. And funny enough, women who had been sexually abused, and they kept on coming back to me for massage. That was unusual, because I thought, they're coming to a guy.
Yeah.
And the way I used to massage was totally naked underneath the towel. And so if I could move, it was always discreetly covered, but I could go from the ankles all the way up over the legs, over the buttocks, over the arms, over the back, down through the shoulders and the arms. And so it was connecting. And I'd take them through an NLP session first of all. We'd sit, we'd talk about what they've been through and everything else. Then I'd put them on the table using colour therapies, aroma therapies and sound therapies, and the massage and everything else to anchor that talk we'd had. So they had time to really embed it into their neurology before they walked out the door. So it wasn't like, go to therapy, walk out the door, whack in the face with the real world.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I started doing that, but then some of the terminally ill patients started reversing their conditions. which to me was bizarre. Now, I was a technical masseuse. This was pretty woo-woo as far as I was concerned. And so it was actually through a meeting that we'd had when I was still married. My second wife was doing her dietetics degree, and she was invited by a friend and they had to go out bush, and it was an Aboriginal group. Well, many years later, I decided I needed to find out more, and I met an Aboriginal person one day. He got me to go and see him. He was an elder. He ran a what do you call it, a fun park up in Newcastle.
Mhm.
And he said, look, I'm going to have to get the women to call up. I've got someone I need you to talk to. And he said, we've got to wait until some of the women come in because I've got to get and make the call. And I said, well, I looked at him. He said, oh, the reason is they're going to call this elder who runs the women's refuge. And if she hears a man's voice and doesn't recognize it's me, she'll hang up and she won't answer the phone for some time later.
Right.
So the women actually made the call, put him on. He then put me on the call. And she said to me, we talked about what was going on. I gave her the full story. She said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, what have you got? And she said, come and see me. Now, she would hang up upon somebody rang the women's refuge. Next day, I'm at the refuge. And she, as we were talking, she said to me, Alan, all of a sudden, she just said, look, I can't help you. And I thought, what have I done? Have I said something wrong? And she said, no, what you're learning is older than what I know. And so she connected me with another elder who happened to be one of the elders that I'd met many years before.
Wow.
And he rang me. I was sitting in a cafe and he said, well, what are you doing Friday night? And I said, well, you tell me. He said, you come and camping. So I went out, bush. I had to pick another elder up who didn't have a vehicle, and I picked him up so he could get me into the mountain where I was supposed to go, so I didn't get lost.
Yeah.
And I was put to a test straight away. There was a young fella there with a pain in his side, in his hip. He was talking about how he'd been crying and the pain and everything. And I watched the men around him and the way they treated him with such respect. There was nobody having a shot at him or anything. And what I didn't realize, he was 14 and he'd been through his rite of passage, so he was already a man.
Right.
I'm leading up towards 50, and as far as they're concerned, I'm not. I haven't been through that yet.
Yeah.
So they said, Uncle John just pointed to me and he said, oh, he's a healer, he'll fix you. I took him aside, no massage table, no oils or anything, talking to them while he's standing there, manipulating his leg and everything else. I could feel their eyes on the back of me from the campfire.
Yeah.
And I realized that, 10 minutes later, he's kicking a football with that leg. And I realized it wasn't me, it was the elder who had said to him, he's a healer, he'll fix you. It's like pointing the bone, but in a positive way in this case.
Yeah.
The respect that he had for the elder, the belief in everything else, the power of the mind, he was out there running around on that leg again. Wow. So later that night, the elder said to me, well, what are you doing next month? And I said, well, you told me. He said, you're coming out again. So that was going to turn into going out every month to learn some culture and try and understand why this stuff was happening on my massage. But the other elder, as I'm driving home, he said, just wanted to check, what are you doing next Friday? I said, you mean in a month's time? He said, no, next Friday. And I said, why? He said, well, I haven't got a car and I need to get out bush more. And I think you and I should spend a lot more time together. You can pick me up. We come out here. We'll sit out here. We'll go through stuff. We'll do that every Friday. And then you'll have the one Friday a month with all the other men. And so that went on for over a year. And then one day, talking to the senior elder, and he said to me, what are you doing next week? Said, well, same as I've been doing every week. He said, no, we're picking you up you're going out on Saturday. You're not coming back until the following Sunday. And I went, where are we going? He said, just shut up and get the car. And that's when I went through my rite of passage. So through initiation.
Wow.
And then when it came to teaching the boys to respect their mother, that came out of the fact that my youngest one, because I'd remarried, and that was only a short marriage, but he'd moved back with his mother and they were fighting all the time. And that's how this issue about him respecting his mother came about.
Right.
I would take him out bush. He'd be with these men and everything else. He'd come back respectful. Within a week or two, he's fighting with his mother again. Take him out bush. And this cycle was going on. I realized that the best way for that was to try and get him out bush. Well, I didn't even have to ask. They saw it and invited him out. So two generations of white fellas that went through initiation.
Wow. And so we sort of, you were in your 50s when you went through it. Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Wow.
I just
Amazing.
turned 50.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, respect is so important, isn't it? But
Mm.
intention there, you see,
Yeah.
I did massage myself and the same thing. I now call it esoteric massage, but when the energy flows through you, it's incredible. Once you get out of your head and the logic of it all and just allow
Mm.
the magic to happen. And there's just something so spiritually connecting, being amongst the Aboriginals. And, I've spent a little bit of time, but what an experience you've had, and allowing your gifts to help others. Like, so now you've formed this campfire project. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I realized talking to men in particular in the workplace, I asked them, well, if you had one word to describe your home life or in your business life, what would those words be? And what I got back most of the time was confused and frustrated.
Yeah.
And I'd go, well, first of all, let's deal with confused. Why confused? And they said, well, look, the same as I'd gone through when I was going out there to bring the resources in. They said, we go out to bring the resources in, and yes, we're absent from our family. This is how we show the love to our family. But we're now being told we're physically and emotionally absent, and we can't be in two places at once.
Yeah.
And that's really causing us, because we feel like failures. We can't do everything. And in the workplace, they all wanted to do the right thing, but because with gender equality and political correctness, but the goalposts keep getting moved. And what you can say one day, you can't say the next. And they just couldn't keep up with it. They said, we'll be trying to do the best thing. And because we're focusing on not doing the wrong thing, we end up doing the wrong thing and we get into trouble for it. So that was causing, what do you call it, bullying in the workplace and some domestic violence.
Yeah.
So I realized at that point, most bullies have become bullies because they were bullied themselves
Yep.
in
Yep.
one way or another.
Yep.
If you beat a bully up, all you're going to do is make him worse. So I
Mm.
realized these men needed a safe place where they could just open up and tell their stories,
Yeah.
not be counseled, not tell them they're right or they're wrong or anything else, because that's where most of our problems come from today, especially on Facebook.
Yep.
People take sides and all this empathy comes in, and it actually creates problems
Yep.
because people are taking sides with it. By not taking sides, but just being there to show the person you're not just talking in your head now, you've actually got eyes and ears listening to you,
Mm.
respecting you, not judging you.
Mm.
Because I listen to understand somebody, I don't listen to respond.
Yeah.
Response comes later on, but only after I fully understand. And if
Mm.
I listen to understand somebody, I can see where the similarities are, because we all want to belong, want to feel we contribute, that we're valued, that we have a place.
Mm.
And I see that in everybody I speak to, male, female, all over the world, all genders, cultures, etc. And once I've got that, then when I see the differences, I can appreciate and understand the differences without making a judgment about them.
Mm. Mm.
So may not necessarily agree with what the person's done. I won't, what we'd call it, condone it if they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
But I'll listen to understand what their reason was, why they did something about it. Because if I understand that in the conversation we have, they can learn a different way to do things, because
Mm.
in the conversation, they'll find their own way. And
Mm.
when they find their own answers, they take ownership of it.
Mm.
I can tell them stuff. You
Yeah.
keep telling a man he's not doing well enough, he's going to pull back further and further and finally just go, why bother?
Mm.
And that's one of the things that happen to these boys who don't have fathers. 80% of the most vicious crimes against women that are perpetrated by men or males were perpetrated by males who didn't have a father.
Yeah. Wow.
That statistic that's the thing that got me. And I thought, right, that has to be changed. So
Yeah.
in the Campfire Project, having the safe place where people come and tell their stories, but I didn't want it to be a men's group, because it's like going to a motivational seminar. You're all G'd up, you come home and everyone tells you it won't work, and you've got now feeling miserable again, you're waiting for the next seminar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the same as I saw with a lot of men's groups that just took the men out bush, got them feeling really great. They go back home. They didn't really learn anything about how to respect their wives or anything else. And next thing you know, they're back to where they were.
Yeah.
So I had women in there from day one, but I didn't interview the women. I wanted the men to talk first, because if they didn't, if the women talk first, and the men heard how the women could talk, they probably wouldn't.
Mm.
So then I brought them into panel discussions where we talked about what do you call it, pornography, masculinity, femininity, all the different issues that were affecting men and their families. And I prayed for it, and it happened. The women put their hands up and said, look, when are we going to get involved in this? We love these guys. We've never heard men talk so deeply about their emotions, nor so wisely about how to improve society. So we opened up to the women. We brought them into the one-on-ones. We brought them into the panel discussions.
Yeah.
One of the co-hosts is actually Angela Heiser. She's up in Queensland, I think, a German lady who lives in Brisbane, absolutely brilliant lady. She's doing one-on-ones, panel discussions. I've got a young guy who's, when I say young, he's in his later 40s now, because I'm in my 70s. I can call anyone young.
You're a good-looking rooster, baby.
Oh, can I get that in writing? I'll get a recording of this. I'll take that little bit out. But, the end result was,
rooster.
but the women got involved. We started interviewing them as well, and we brought them into joint panels. We've had a full range of well, I call it gender identities, because it's not so much genders, but how we identify, all the religions and all the cultures.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with males who have transitioned to females, females who have transitioned to males, had brilliant conversations with them, understanding them, all the other groups in there. And then we brought the women into those as well. So now we've got the men and women having conversations. Young Scott, who is my co-host in there, I've talked him into, he did his one-on-one with me, then he joined the panels. I asked him one day, when are you going to step up? He said, what do you mean step up? He said, I'm already doing panel discussions, running on them. And I said, no, when are you going to run them? When are you going to start interviewing people? Yeah. Well, he went away and he came back to me later on and said that, and this is a guy who used to be, he was on the streets at the age of 14. He was involved in drugs and alcohol, bike gangs and everything else. Yeah. He went away and he came back to me and he said, actually, I was in tears thinking that it's the first time anyone's backed me. Yeah. So he then stepped up, and when he said to me, I said, okay, you're going to do a one-on-one? He said, yep. And I said, who have you picked for your first one-on-one? He said, my dad. I went, your dad? He said, yeah, the guy who walked out on me when I was 11 years old that I've never seen since.
Oh, it's going to make me cry. Years. Oh, my God. It's
the conversation was not to find fault, but to understand why his father made the decisions he had. Now he and his father are really getting on with each other. They've started building a relationship. It's going well. It's been a couple of years now. And at the same time, Oscar, who is Scott's son, who was 9 years old at the time, finally met his grandfather. And so now 3 generations getting together. Scott then he started a group called the Business of Smiles. That's now been turned into a charity. He's the managing director of that. I'm a director. So, and this is the thing for everyone who's out there. Our job as parents to help our kids to become the best versions of themselves. We're not carpenters and we are not sculptors. We are gardeners. We help them become the best version. Then that's something to be proud of. And I look at my boys and they're doing things that I've never done in such a way that, I couldn't be more proud of them. The whole thing of any leader, and this goes for a parent or a boss in a workplace or anything else, as a leader, our job is to make ourselves redundant by raising others up to do what we do, but do it better than we've ever done it, so that we can go on and do other things. Scott, he's stood up in such a way that I just stand back in awe of what he's achieved so far, knowing that by the time he gets to my age, he will have eclipsed that well and truly with the things that he's creating. Wow. And I know that what he's doing with his son and how his son's, they're both running podcasts at the moment. Oscar's now 13.
Wow, so cool.
He talks like a grown man with such wisdom and everything else that he's got through the connections with his father and the other men that have been around. And he is going to eclipse his father as well. Wow. So this is the stuff we look back on. It couldn't make us more proud of when we've got people like that around us. And all under the hashtag We Together.
Yeah, We Together. That's hashtag, yeah. And the Business of Smiles. Don't you have some socks? Is it socks that you do?
Yeah, actually, I've got a pair right here.
As it happens.
But the people are listening to that. We go out, big black T-shirts, big smiley faces, yellow faces on it, wearing those socks, and when you see them on my bare legs and everything else, you're going to grin. And we walk up to people and we thank them for doing the best they could. When they say, what do you mean doing the best we could? We go, you're married, you're raising your children, you've got work colleagues, people in general. Do you make the best decisions that you can with the information you have? And they go, yes, and you make better decisions, you had better information, but you're doing the best you can with the information you got. They go, yes, we'd like to gift you a pair of socks. And as we give them the pair of socks, we tell them the story of it. The little black dots, your tough days. They're going to come. Those dark days, they're always going to be there.
Yep.
You're not going to get out of them. But the yellow reminds us there's more sunny days than dark days. That warmth of the winter sun on your back. When you've got enough of that, your dark days never join up, the same as the black dots here are kept separated as well. And that usually means that people then break down and start to tell us their life stories. And that's been, we had out 2,500 pairs in Melbourne leading up to Christmas the year before. And that was in 12 days, 2,500 pairs of socks, and started 2,500 conversations around mental health.
Wow.
And so our target now is to get those into the hands. You know, we handed them to people who are on the street. And when we'd be down there over 12 days, you'd see a homeless person come by again and they got the socks on. And they come past us, they'd see us if they saw us and that, they'd be pointing at their socks with big grins on their face.
Yeah.
I remember one father, we gave him a pair of socks. He took them home and gave him to his son. He said, my son needs them more. He then got back in touch with us a couple of days later and said, my son's finally starting to talk to me. He's had the socks on, he wears them to bed, he won't take them off. And that brought him and his father back together again in conversations.
I mean, everything we're talking about is that power of connection and power of communication, like bringing it up and out and talking, and particularly, you know, reuniting that bond between parents and their kids, and particularly fathers and their sons. I mean, you know, there's that old saying, hurt people, and everything that we're talking about prior to that. And it's just understanding, peeling back the layers, and, you know, what you're doing with this, well, with the Business of Smiles and also with the Campfire Project, allowing people to have a voice, to be heard with no judgment. I think a lot of what's come out today is talking about respect without judgment, and like listening to understand, listening to learn, and connecting with people. It's super powerful. So,
and so that all links back to the business itself, my business and what I do. If it wasn't the fact that I was able to read people so effectively, I never would have been able to do this as well as I've been able to do it.
Yeah.
And so when people say, where does your business start? Where does your charity start? Where does your community efforts and school efforts and other things start and finish? And I go, they're not, they're just blended together. Everything's connected.
Yeah. Oh, you've given me so many goosebumps today, because it's just like, it's so landing with me. So talk about how you created the human pattern recognition business.
Okay, well, my first instance was when I was 23, I was put in charge of men who were all older than me. I was 23, my second in charge was 28. One of the other guys had been my senior officer in Sydney. When I came to Newcastle, he was on my staff. So I had to get them on side. So I started with body language in those days, because that was the flavour of the month with Alan Pease and that, who was out there. In the 80s, because it was a PMG I was with, and they became Telstra. And the day they became Telstra, I went from Sydney to Newcastle and put in this situation. They got those men on side, but in the 80s, we started with a bit of psychometric profiling, Myers-Briggs and DISC and things like that.
Yep.
And that got me interested in being able to read people. In the 90s, I got interested in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Sometimes, you know, when I was married, I used to say I got the wife's teeth in, but I can't do that anymore. The end result was in the early 2000s, I went back and I did my master's, and because I'd been a massage therapist, aromatherapist, Reiki master, colour and sound therapies, I'd introduced those into the Singapore hospital for the kids with ADHD. And so all of those issues were all around working with people. It was always picking more and more skills up. But it was in the early 2000s, there was a company that taught currency trading, and none of their students made any money. So they brought me in to try and figure out what was going on. And I used Myers-Briggs and DISC profiling at the time. We profiled all the people that were coming through. We thought we knew their profiles. Then when they went through their training with a brilliant instructor who was a very professional and efficient trader, they had the best of all worlds with him. They were still losing their money at the end of it. And we noticed they no longer acted as the behaviour of the personality we'd all got from Myers-Briggs and DISC.
Right.
We realised when you ask people questions, they try and second guess. And these people were becoming, they thought this is what they had to be a great trader, so they behaved that way. But when they put their money on the table, this is when their real personality, they're going to get stressed, it's going to come back. and they're going to be operating this way, and they were falling down on their trading.
Right.
I first of all created trading plans that didn't matter where they came from, it would make sure they did the right thing all the way through. But at the same time, I realized I needed a better way of reading people.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine has a spiritual retreat, and he was running a little workshop, and he asked me to do a Myers-Briggs one where all these regulars came along and they brought their partners. So we played with the 4 dichotomies, had a bit of fun with it. And when I was about to leave, one of the guys said to me, "You ever looked at reading faces?" You know, but all the things I'm doing in my life have come from the fact that the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything.
Yeah, I love that.
And I learn from everyone. That's why I could learn from the Aboriginals, because as a surf lifesaver, I used to examine the 9 and 10-year-olds for their bronze medallions. And when I'd ask them to explain to me what they were seeing in the surf, I was looking through their eyes. So I learned something new completely every time I worked with them. So I've learned from all ages, all cultures, all genders, you name it, I've learned from all of them. And so with that, in this particular situation, we had I've gone off track there a little bit. I do this, got to rein me in every now and then to bring me back. But so that's right. I then came home, searched the internet and found Paul Ekman, the psychologist who did all the research on the micro expressions, little twitches on the face. Something happens around you, unconsciously we react. The face gives it an expression, and the conscious mind steps in and switches it off. So little quick twitches gives the truth away.
Love it.
And then met a lady who taught the facial features, and then ended up training with both of them. It was funny because I actually went all the way to America to be with Naomi, who taught me how to read the facial features. Stayed with her and her husband, and I realized that she knew nothing about the facial expressions. And psychologists were still, if you ever mentioned face reading, they were thinking about phrenology, which was character and bumps on their head and whether the person was good character or not. Well, I'm talking about the face, which is about personality, how somebody likes to think and process, not the what.
Yeah.
And so in reading that, I then realized that neither of them were doing what the other one was doing, but I realized they correlated with each other so much. Because whenever I look at somebody, if I got their photograph, I've got their personality. And so in a situation like this, I can look at you straight away and I know that you need a little bit of space when you meet people for the first time, but not because you're not friendly. It's more that you're more discerning. You want to work out who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around. So straight away, I know to give you space so that I make you feel comfortable so you can hear what I've got to say. If I step in, you're not going to hear it because you're too worried about the situation. And by the way, there's no right or wrong trait. Every trait's got an upside. Every trait's got a downside. So the upside's where our strengths are. The downside is how we get challenged when we're stressed out. So if we know the downside, we set our environment up so we don't get triggered, and we can then focus on our upside, not like at school, we worked on our weaknesses all the way through. Here we work on our strengths, and we get other people who have where our weaknesses are. We hire the other people who have the strengths in that area, and now we have a team that's effective.
This is the way of the future. This is the way of the now, Alan. This is the way to lift people out of the mud and bring them to the light, to enjoy their days and not feel that they're different and, I don't fit in. It's just like you do fit in. It's just like working with your strengths. And this is what I love about you, because you're making it, you're getting to the masses. You're not just talking about it. You're actually applying it and getting out there and helping people find themselves and realize that they're not a bad person because they're not this or that. And yes, we all have weaknesses, but it's a life of duality. It's a world of duality. So it's working.
When you step up to them, they no longer control you. Like, I know you have fine hair, I've got fine hair, highly empathetic. The upside of that trait is we can connect with anybody and we can feel their feelings. We can then connect with them and build a relationship. The downside of it is that we can hold on to their stuff. And so
it's
then
so true.
we get worn out.
I'm shaking all the time.
Getting rid of that carry on stuff. But one of the things is I talk about my traits, put other people at ease. I'll talk about the downside of my traits. And that one I'll talk about and I'll describe to people. Remember the old fairy tale where the princess got lost. It was a little girl got lost. They found this raggedy girl and they thought she might be the princess. So to test her, they put a hardened pea, a little pebble on the ground and put a mattress over it. She felt it. They put another one over it. If she kept on feeling it, then she had to be a princess. If she didn't feel it, then she was a commoner. And they kept on putting mattress after mattress after mattress. And people will say to me, yeah, but what's that got to do with it? I go, I've got that fine hair. I'm that princess. They go, what? And I go, yeah, when I go out bush, I got my swag. The other guys have got their swags rolled up that tight. Mine's that big because the mattress is that thick. And the other guys laugh at me because when I'm about to roll it out, I sweep the ground and get rid of all the pebbles because I can feel them. A small pebble I can feel through that mattress. Guys, I'm a princess. But if I laugh about it, nobody can throw that back at me. They've got no power.
Oh, I just love it because you're just being real, warts and all, you're exposing. And it's so funny because I'm going swag camping on Friday. So like, so
take your broom, sweep the ground.
That's what happened. I went last year and you can feel the little bumps underneath and it's just like you can't sleep. I just love it. I absolutely love it. But
see, if I didn't have that fine hair, I wouldn't have achieved the connections I've made with so many people who have found solutions to their problems. And in fact, when I turned 68, they had a surprise birthday party for me. That was in the middle of COVID. So everyone was only online. That was celebrated on 7 continents.
Wow.
Yeah, that just blew me away. And when I turned 70, the messages that were coming through were people saying that what they got out of the Campfire Project, out of my profile and the work they've done with me, had not only changed their lives, but had saved their lives.
Yeah.
That would never have happened if I didn't have, first of all, that empathy trait, then had the attitude that the next thing I learn is going to be the most important thing. So I always have an open mind. I always say to people, take that one plus another Arabic one, which is, trust everybody, but lock up your camels at night. And people say, well, how do they correlate? I said, listen to everybody, take it all in. Like Bruce Lee had said, take all the good stuff, reject all the bad stuff, and add your own stuff to it. Yeah. And that's what I do there. By listening to everybody, you take it all in and then trust everybody in taking it in, but then discern it for yourself. Work out what fits you and what doesn't. Discard what doesn't, take on what does, and then mold it into your own fashion as well. So that then it becomes unique. Because now my target is to create and train my competition. I need more people doing what I'm doing, but they have to be doing it right. So I believe I've got a moral obligation to train them. Yeah. And when people say to me, can I be as good as you? I said, you better set the bar higher because I expect you to be better than me because you'll bring your stuff to the table. You got everything I've got, you'll put it together and you'll go out and be able to deliver that. So those that do my master programs, I will then work with them and create a course that then becomes theirs to take out into their industry. So they become the specialists in that industry. And if I work with enough industries, I'm going to be fully occupied working with people, knowing that they're working with the masses beyond that, long after I fall off the perch as well. Not that I'm going to do that in a hurry. No. I've got the talons in there tight. I might be hanging upside down like a bat, but I'll still be there.
Yeah. So on your website, alanstevens.com, isn't it? Or is it .com.au?
.au.
So alanstevens.com.au with a V, STEVEN.
Yeah, and Alan with one L.
One L. Yeah. And is it
all the people who write it with 2 L's, I just tell them, look, my family wasn't rich enough to get 2 L's. All I got was a 1.
Yeah, because on there, that's where you have all the wealth of information. The Campfire Project is in there, as well as your programs.
Well, the Campfire Project's actually a separate one called thecampfireproject.com.au.
The Campfire.
And so that's just a one word for that. What I am doing is redesigning. My website's being rebuilt at the moment. That will have a lot more in there. There'll be a lot of associations and things I'm working with. The Business of Smiles will be found through there as well.
Yeah, bringing it all together. Yeah.
A full centre for, the business side of things. Because as I say, when people ask you, what do you bring to the table in your business? The only answer I've ever been able to give is I just bring the damn table.
Your toolbox is this big, Alan. It's this big. You've got big shoes to fill. And I love how your whole aim is to create and train your competition so that you'll be out of a job. I love that. That's a fantastic vision.
Amazing. The whole thing is I'll never be out of a job because the strategic alliance I have with them, not competition, means that I'll always have relationships with them. It means I can always then keep building more materials that they can then take out and use out with everybody else. So I'm going to be fully employed, but running my own time frame when I want to do it. So some nights when I can't sleep, I'll get up and do the work. And then the days where I want to sleep through the day or take it easy, go for a coffee, go out with friends, etc., I can do that. but I can always make sure the stuff is there on time for the people that are going to go out and deliver to other people.
Yeah.
And that way I don't need to have a franchising agreement with them. I don't need a licensing agreement. I'll have so much material for them that's kept up to date all the time. It would be a total waste of their time and energy to go out and try and go into competition.
Mm.
And eventually I'll figure out which ones are those, then I'll pass the whole lot to and go, right, now it's yours.
Wow. Super powerful. Like this is the way that we're evolving, and it's this connection and communication and getting people at their grassroots and understanding and working with their strengths. Like it's simple, but it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, of course it's not, because it's we're working with the human people. Have you ever seen that YouTube clip, or it's got the two different heads, a man and a woman, and if you open it up and they're talking about the man's brain, and it's all compartmentalized everything, so it's like little compartments for this and this and this and whatever, and you open up the woman's brain and it's all just like spaghetti. Everything intertwined with emotions underpinning it all.
There's one thing that the man's got the woman hasn't got, and that's a nothing box.
Yeah, they do. They have a nothing box. Yeah.
Because we can sit there and do absolutely nothing. You can ask us what's going on. Nothing. How can you be doing nothing? Because yours are, they're all over the place all the time. It's like, but this is a beautiful part of it, realizing that yes, we need to have equality, but we're never going to be equal in the things that we do. We are complementary.
Yeah.
We need each other.
Exactly.
One without the other is a failure.
Yep. It's the duality of life. Like, that's just how we coexist, right? The divine feminine, the divine masculine. It's all energy, right? And it's just understanding that. But what I particularly love about you is you get down to grassroots with real people. You know, it's not just you combining the practical, very practical, of literally getting people's core stuff out, but with spiritual alignments. And it's not woo-woo. It's just combining the both. Once again, it's the duality and bringing it together. Very powerful.
It's powerful stuff. It's stuff that really works, because as I said, I've got clients who 14 years later are still doing testimonial videos for me, where it's changed their lives. I've got others. Well, I have got one coach over in Perth. He sent me 5 photographs. I sent him back a 45-minute audio. He listened to that, and then he came back to me, and that's when he told me he used to be an undercover narcotics agent for 2 decades. And in that time, he used skills he believed were 85 to 95% accurate. As he said, if they hadn't been, he wouldn't be alive today. But from his 5 photographs, this 45-minute audio not only matched, but nuanced everything he learned about himself in those 2 decades. So the face gives away everything, and it's not woo-woo. If you think about, if you lift weights, you build your muscles. Everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. So while you're concentrating and thinking, you're pulling the same expression over and over. They're the nurture traits that you created over time in response to your environment, how you chose to respond. Yes, you will have nature traits that were passed down from your parents, but they give you that foundation of what you then build on. And that's one of the reasons why our faces change. Some people look older as they get much older, as they get older, and others don't seem to age at all. It's because of how we've thought and how we've pulled those expressions, etc. Because every thought we have, as I said, causes a chemical reaction. They go through every organ of our body. So it's complete. When they say that our neurology and physiology are linked, yes, they are. What we eat has an impact. What we think has a massive impact.
Massive impact,
Everything comes together. And if we just look at one little area, we'll get a bit of a thing. But when we bring it all together, we actually magnify. It's exponential increase in what we do. That's why I realized in my life, I brought all these modalities together and went, right, how do I blend those? Then when somebody walks through the door, you won't hear from me, oh yeah, this is the best thing. You know, you should be doing face reading, or you should be doing hypnosis, or whatever it might be. It's no, tell me your situation. What is it you need? Okay, now I fully understand where you are. Open my toolbox up. Is there a tool in there to fix it? If there isn't, then I'll find somebody who's got the tool. Because I make that person the center of their universe, not just my client. It's not about me making money first. That's why I said those that want to become my replacements in this, become my big competition, I will interview them. If they show that they really are focused on their people, yes, I'll make money. It's a secondary thing, but they're focused on helping people, then I'll train them. If they're just coming to me because they know they can make a lot of money with it, not interested. Because I want the people to carry it on. It's not about me just having a living, but that legacy is so important to me.
Well, surely you'd read that. Yeah, you pick up on that vibe, and you can feel your passion shining through. Now, earlier I had asked you to just jot down what you feel is your biggest issue facing your clients, and you said it's the inability to read and understand each other and that lack of communication. And I think that's what we've really highlighted, is how important communication is, and understanding, not judging, but just understanding others. But
So it's compounded though by the insecurities that people have got. That's where it all starts, and that then leads on to the other, as I said before. So that's even probably further before that. See, everybody has suffered or feels insecure. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody pretends they're not wearing a mask, and that's all of us, including me. But we are all a combination of how we decided or chosen to respond to all the events in our lives. When we realise that, if anybody's worried about, oh, what do people think of me? Well, guess what? Everybody else is thinking the same thing about themselves. They're not thinking about they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. So when you realise that, and you realise that all of us have got issues, then we can go, okay, we don't have to be perfect. I'll leave walking to the water to that one other person. He did it. Done. I tried it, and I was down at the bottom of the pool very fast.
Oh my God, it's so true. Everyone does have insecurities, but it's true. And we are wearing masks, and no matter how much work we've done on each other, ourselves, it's true.
But so those insecurities are perfect. That's our beauty of each person. That's what makes us different from everybody else. That's where our gifts are.
Yeah. Because we're all perfectly imperfect, right? Warts and all. It's just like, So you've also brought along 3 top tips that will help you change the way that you communicate and build relationships faster. And the first one you said is understand yourself. The second was read other people. And the third is talk to them in the way that they want and need to be spoken to.
That's it.
Absolutely.
It's basic. If you do the first one, then you're past your insecurities. You understand yourself. You know why you do the things you do. It's the first level to understand before you can even work on grief in your life. If you understand yourself, then that all becomes much easier. But then knowing how to read somebody else and know where they are on the world scale compared to you, then knowing how to speak to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. When it comes to respect, yes, we treat other people the way we want them to treat us. However, when it comes to communication, we need to be able to read them, understand them, so that we can treat them and speak to them in the way that they want us to treat them and speak to them. Then we've got true communication. If we do both of those at the same time, we're always going to have great relationships.
And imagine if we taught this in the schools from a young age, and kids took on this. This is a game changer, Ellen. And like, the more that we can just get this idea and letting it land, and it's common sense, really, but it's just, you can't change what you don't know. So it's just changing the awareness, and like, as we started right at the beginning, focusing on the strengths, not the weaknesses, and building that and understanding our differences, and working with ourselves, because, as you said, everybody is unique. And I think that's part of the flaw in the schooling system, having had 4 kids go through, and they're all very different, but allowing kids to explore their differences and not be a square peg in a round hole just because
find where their gifts are and nurture them through. But that's that I'm already started on that. My youngest student was my 11-year-old granddaughter, and now she's 16. But before her, there were 2 young fellas that I trained. One was 14 and one was 15. The 15-year-old, when I asked him how he was using it after he did the master course, he said, I'm profiling the other kids at school. And I said, well, tell us about that. He said, now I know why they do the things they do. I know why they push my buttons, and I know why I push their buttons. And I said, well, what did you get out of that? He said, tolerance. That was when I knew I had to get into schools. Now, at that point, trying to come in through the education department, unless you got a university degree in psychology, or you practice and you got this working overseas, they're not interested in looking at it. The 14-year-old, though, I couldn't use what he said at the time, but when I asked him how he was using it, he said he was profiling the teachers. And I went, okay, tell me about that. He said, well, the cheekiest smile on his face, because he was a little larrikin. He said, I know which ones to pick and which ones to leave alone. And I'm stirring them more than I've ever stirred them before. He said, I'm not getting into anywhere near as much trouble because I know which ones. So he's targeting the teachers. And I said, well, how's your academic levels going? So I'll forget about that. He said, I'm too busy to turn the teachers. So now I'm working with a couple of gentlemen, ex-school principals, who are in the area of putting courses together for accreditation for school teachers. So later this year, I'm running 4 workshops for school teachers in New South Wales and another 2 next year. And in doing that, that should get my courses then accredited so I can get it into that area. I'd already had them accredited through the Institute of Learning and Performance for all industries in Australia and Asia, but not school teachers. Now I'm after the school teachers. If I get those, then I'll go back to the teachers and say, look, because at the moment I'm putting together some cards with little flashcards. So a picture on the one side, what the trade is we're looking at. On the other side, I'll have what it means, how to read it, and how to talk to that person. If I get those into the hands of the school kids, then I'll go back to the teachers. I'm going to have to apologise. I've created a problem for them because that 14-year-old, there's going to be a lot more of them. And they're going to have to get them in the classroom and says, let the teachers learn. So I come in the gentle way, which was asking them before to have a look at it. Now I'll come with, they're going to be begging me to come in and fix the problem I've created.
Oh, I don't know how you have time to sleep, Alan, with everything that you have going on. It's fantastic. Oh, that is like music to my ears. It gives me hope that there is hope for this future, for this country and for this planet. So just before we close up, did you want to share a little bit more about the master program? So is that, I know we access it through alanstevens.com.au, but is it an online program and how long does it go for?
I've got online courses that people can go and do. I've got a short course or short program, which is an online course. I do the person's profile and then we get together and they share their photographs of people they want to build a relationship with. So they know their own profile. They've known how to read people. Now we talk about those people I want to build better relationships with. And some of the people I've done that, they've actually resurrected deals. One guy, he had a quote on a building he was going to build, $2 million. The people he was doing it for wouldn't go above 1.6. He showed me their faces. We profiled those. He went back and spoke to them, added another 160,000 to his original quote and signed them off on it.
Whoa.
So on a program that was costing just under $1,000, he made tens of thousands of dollars in profits on that building. And so great return on investment. But the main one, the master program, 2 different master programs. One's a full-blown practitioner, but the other one is one I mainly use for salespeople, teachers, parents, all the rest. It takes about 10 weeks to go through. But I always say to people, we keep working after that until they're really proficient with it. But that one takes in all the body language, the micro expressions, the face, what do you call it? Expressions and also traits and everything else. Also takes in the language, how to use the language and everything else. So taking NLP to a different level again. That is one we do face-to-face or over the internet like this. And so if it's over the internet, I record the session so the person gets a copy of everything we talked about. There's their notes. If we're out in the public, well, all those resources walking around, we can profile on the spot. So some people, if they live close, like to do a combination of both. And the whole thing there is working through that, making sure that they get to that level. And as I say, even after they're finished, I have a young guy who's an IT specialist in the Philippines. It's about 8 years, 10 years ago now. He finished his training. He loved it so much. He went back to uni and got his psychology degree. He's now working in the prisons over there as a prison psychologist. And every now and then he'll send me a description of somebody. As I said, don't send me faces because of confidentiality, but he knows what traits to tell me about. And I go back and say, well, okay, try this. Have you thought of this? So, as I say, I hope you like me when you train with me because you're stuck with me.
Oh my God, look, back in the 80s, I studied sociology and psychology. And, we used to study, go and watch people in the cafe and just their behaviors. But this takes it to a whole new level 40 years later. Wow, fantastic. Well, Alan, I just love and adore you. I think what you're doing is it's absolutely needed. And this is the perfect time where I think, people are open to this sort of approach and understanding, because it does make sense. And it's just, if we can take the time to just stop and listen, let it digest and go, wow, because this is all about listening and learning. And this is why I do these sort of podcasts, is to information share and see where it lands, because if it resonates with you, delve in further. It's
Mm,
like, because we can't change what we don't know, like I said before. So it's just
that's
building
it.
up that awareness and understanding. So Alan Stevens, thank you so much. It's alanstevens.com.au. I'll put all the information in there as well. But thank you so much for being a
Thank
guest
you.
on Magic Moments. It's just like, oh my gosh, you were so fascinating, and your toolbox is this big. I don't know how you have time to sleep, but quick little one. Do you intimidate women when it comes to relationship situations?
Well, I've had a lot of women come up to me and actually, or especially younger women, have come up and asked to take me out for the evening. And I've realised there's a group of them, they want me to be their wingman to work things out for them.
Oh my God, I wish you were living down here in Melbourne. That is so hilarious.
But what it comes down to, people used to say to me, well, what do you do for a business? I clear rooms. They said, what do you mean you clean rooms? You're a cleaner. I said, no, I clear rooms. They said, what are you talking about? When people find out what I do, they run out of the room. But when they find out why and how I do it, they come back and they bring their family, friends, and colleagues. Because once a person, as I say, I'm reading you to understand you, to build a stronger relationship. If I'm at a party, the truth seeker type side of it, the micro expressions, they're switched off. I'm there to have fun. I'm not there to judge you or anything else. I want to have a great conversation. But reading someone's facial features and understanding their personality never gets switched off, because if I did, I would talk to them in a disrespectful way. Whereas if I can read them, I can talk to them in that proper way, which is far more respectful, and we all have a good time.
Alan, I could sit here and chat for hours, because it's just
You notice I can talk for hours too.
You know what? We're not here for a long time. Let's have a good laugh as we go through life, hey?
That's it.
So thank you so much for being my guest today. And I just encourage everybody to reach out to Alan. You've got this toolbox of wisdom. It's incredible. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
See ya.